I keep thinking of things to say. I keep thinking about what we should say to start off. Am I plugged in? Let me make sure I'm not muted or anything like that. Um, you guys will tell me if you don't have any if you don't have any sound. Give me a cue here in a minute or two, and you guys can tell if this is. I don't think it's muted. I think everything's the way it's supposed to be. I keep trying to think of like what I should say, like how to start off this live stream. Like, how do we start off this post game show after Pitt's 42-28 win? Thanks. Go Pitt 24. And there it is. Thank you for telling us it's all good. Keep thinking about what would I start off with? You know, you want to start a post game show with a quick summary of the game and, you know, hit on the big points and make some big picture, you know, points and, it kind of set the table for what the conversation's going to be like, but what the hell, man? It's just, like, I actually have something I want to say. Like, I have like a big picture thought on this that's related to this game. It's also related to Pitt. It's related to your existence and my existence and just sort of our general and this is my first beer of the evening. I'm not rambling because I've been drinking all night. I'm not. I literally opened this right before we started the show, so I haven't been sitting here drinking. You might think like, oh geez, he already sounds drunk. I mean, I'm drunk on ridiculous football, I'll tell you that. I'm buzzed on ridiculous silly college football that never fails to deliver on just complete and utter nonsense. And I would say tonight is no exception. So I'm drinking to get us started here. Late night, primetime game. Got to find some, you hope that the game gives you plenty to talk about. Most games do. I don't think there's ever been a game where we struggled to find something to talk about. Even a game like the Notre Dame game last week, there's not really, it's not like we were any short of topics in that one. Although I suspect that tonight will be a little bit more interesting than most. But we got a lot of people filing in. I'm going to make sure we have like the box score available. Georgia Tech, look, Georgia Tech's official stat crew, I don't want to say they did a terrible job, but they didn't do a good job because they missed the first play of the second quarter. Jakiri and Turner 14-yard carry. So their stats are all messed up. Pitt ended up with 412 yards. Turner had 201 I think it was 201 yards on 21 carries and a touchdown. Just an awesome game from Jakiri and Turner. He also caught 4 passes for 12 yards, but he just had a monster game capped by that 56-yard touchdown to finally fully put it away. Yeah, we're probably going to do a shot for him. And, of course, we'll probably have one for Braylon Lovelace, the pride of Leechburg, coming out with a 100-yard pick six. I think that's Pitt's third pick six in a row, like 3 games in a row with a pick six. Certainly we've seen this team do that before. We've seen these linebackers do that before. And there was one play, I thought it was funny. I'll see if I can find it. One of the Georgia Tech guys put up the shark sign. When was it? It was in the fourth quarter, I think. Oh, they got a sack. It was Pitt's second drive of the second half. And they got a sack, but Pitt was still winning by 3 touchdowns at that point. And their linebacker put up the shark sign. And it was like, you realize that Pitt's linebacker, who, one of the guys who started the whole shark thing, just had a 100-yard pick six. So you probably have to sit back on that one. Anyway, all right, here's the thing. Okay, here's my main thought. Just as I was like, collecting my various alcohols for this evening's program, I had a thought, and it cracked me up because it's true. When Pitt is at its best, and I mean Pitt, like Pitt football in general, not just this team, the 2025 team, but most Pitt teams, when they are at their best, they manage to occupy this space, this middle ground area, this yin and yang, darkness and light, evil and good space, where they allow you to get really mad. They give you lots of reasons to get really mad, and they give you lots of things to complain about. And we will come out of this game complaining about lots of things. And I suspect on this live show tonight, this post-game show, we will complain about lots of things. And yet they do it in a win. And so you can complain, but always end it with, well, at least they won. Or even if you want to start a sentence with, I know they won, but it's like this, like I say, darkness and light, good and evil, yin and yang, dog and cat, whatever you want to call it. It occupies the space and it allows you as the fans to complain like crazy. And you should complain like crazy about the fake punt, among other things, but most notably the fake punt. One of the, we'll just let Josh Newark say it, the dumbest fake punt in football history. And I'm not sure if it's the dumbest fake punt in football history. I mean, Napoleon, like anyone could even know that. And we've seen some dumb fake punts over the years, twice at Notre Dame, I want to say. I think Dave Wanstead had one in 2010 at Notre Dame that was pretty dumb. They ran it to the short side of the field and everything. But direct snap to Blue Hicks on a 4th and 9 when you're holding on to a 2-touchdown lead, 3-touchdown lead at that point from your own 41, and you're just trying to get out of there. Let me find that play just to highlight. There it is. Yeah, 4th and 9 from the 41. You're up 2 touchdowns at that point, and you go with a direct snap. That was those are things that smart people don't do. But Pitt was able to survive. And so they gave you something to complain about so you can be in your natural state, which is being mad about Pitt football, right? I think that's a natural, comfortable place. Really, I think there's a healthy segment of Pitt fans who are most comfortable when they're mad about Pitt football. And so you have something like that, a really, really not good idea, which gives you something to complain about and make you mad about Pitt football, but they do it in a win. So you get to say, like, you can vacillate. You can go back and forth. You can be like, well, for the next few minutes, I am just going to be really annoyed that on that drive, they threw the ball 3 times. They dropped back to pass 3 times when they took possession with 8.5 minutes left to go in the game, holding a 2-touchdown lead against an offense that was, doing better than Pitt's offense had been, basically in the second half. They take the ball with 8.5 minutes. They drop back to pass 3 times on 2nd down and 3rd down. 2nd down, they snap the ball with 11 seconds left to go on the play clock. 3rd down, they snap the ball with 18 seconds left to go on the play clock, instead of running that baby down and trying to take as much time off. And then on 4th and 9 from the 41 with 7 minutes and 5 seconds left to play in a 2-touchdown game against a dynamic offense playing at home with lots of momentum behind them and the home crowd supporting them, you'll run a fake punt with a direct snap to a wide receiver who's not exactly known for his tackle breaking abilities. Bro, in 2015, when you had Ryan Winslow throw a fake punt pass to Matt Galambos at Syracuse, you were trying to go down to score the game-winning field goal, and you were closer to midfield or maybe just past it, and I think it was a shorter 4th down than 4th and 9. You didn't try to direct snap to Blue Hicks. Maybe Blue Hicks had a pass option. Maybe there was something that in the execution of the play that got messed up, but in no way would that ever justify it. And so we could sit here and complain about this fake punt. We can complain about snapping the ball too early. We can complain about not running the ball more when you have a running back who literally was averaging 10 yards per carry at that point. But we can do it all in the aftermath of a win, because your Pitt Panthers, folks, knocked off the number 16 team in the country on the road by 2 touchdowns. The over hit, as I predicted. Look, when you don't get many predictions right, you're going to take a victory lap on every one that you can. I wrote it in the 3-2-1 column yesterday. You can go check it out. The one prediction was, because 3-2-1 column, 3 things we know, 2 questions we have, 1 prediction. My prediction was that the over would hit, and boy, howdy did it. 42-28, Pitt wins. They stake themselves a 28-0 lead. They hold on for dear life. They get a 100-yard pick 6. They get a 56-yard touchdown run, and it's enough to get out of Atlanta with a win, handing Georgia Tech its first loss at home in 2 years. And effectively ending Georgia Tech's hopes of reaching the ACC championship and possibly the college football playoff. There might be a scenario that still exists for the Yellow Jackets to get to Charlotte, but it's going to be a whole lot harder, and they're going to need a whole lot of help to get there. as a result of this win. Pitt now 8-3 on the season, 6-1 in the ACC. They've won 6 conference games in a row since starting the year 2-2. They are now 6-1 over the last 7 games. That's a heck of a way to turn things around. And well, I was going to say something like, I think at this point, you just got to consider this season a pretty strong season, no matter what happens next week against Miami. But we'll have plenty of time to go down that road and talk about how, Pitt can get whether this season was a success or whatnot. Look, we got lots of comments, lots of questions, lots of people tuning in here late on a Saturday night. I hope you guys are all enjoying yourselves as well. Let's just jump into some comments and questions here and have some fun. And see what you guys have to say. Listen, tons of comments, tons of questions. We got like 400 people watching this right now. We appreciate all you guys tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe. And I'm going to try and read as many comments and questions as we can tonight. When I saw it was a 7:00 kickoff, I knew we'd have a late night. So not trying to rush off the bed or anything like that. But if you want to make sure we read your comment or read your question, put that comment and question in a super chat. Okay. Like a lot of guys already have. And we will definitely get to it, and we'll try and get to as many others as we can. Eric Bruno, 784 was our first super chatter, says the athletic director has to have some sort of conversation with Pat Narduzzi behind closed doors on that fake 4th down punt. That's egregious on every level. Happy they won, but Pat makes it hard to forgive if they lose this. Yeah. Oh, we wouldn't be sitting here laughing. Right. We like the whole tone of the first, whatever, we're 12 minutes into this live show. The whole tone of this post-game show will be very different for the last 12 minutes if Georgia Tech had come back and won that game after the fake punt. The tone would be very different, right? Like there will be no talk of balance and yin and yang and darkness and light and all good and evil and all of those things. It would just be about complaining. And I'd be right there with you because that was an unjustifiable decision. And coaches always have some way to justify things. Coaches always have some way to come back and say, well, we got the look that we wanted. I don't care that you got the look. It doesn't matter if you got the look that you wanted. That was not the situation to try to see if you could get the look that you wanted. Even if you punted out of the end zone for a touchback, like you've done basically every punt. And quite frankly, one of the only ones that wasn't a touchback, you would have been a lot better off if you had kicked a touchback. But even if you kick it into a touchback, you're giving, Georgia Tech the ball at their own 20 as opposed to your 41. That's a 39-yard difference. And yeah, shock of all shocks, Georgia Tech, after the fake punt, goes down and scores a touchdown in 6 plays. So, indefensible and unjustifiable. There was no way that was a good decision. Not like I can't even, and I know I sometimes get a reputation as like, oh, I always defend Pitt on things or, shill or whatever. And that's fine. I tend to think I approach things pretty objectively, but that would be a decision we would, am I using this word right? Excoriate? We would excoriate it. Joe New, 8259 says, win, lose, or draw. Pat Narduzzi is a bonehead each week. A bonehead dad? Is that what you're trying to say? Look, so this is the thing, right? This is where you get both sides of it. That was a terrible decision, but also there was some great stuff from that defense early on in the game. Pitt's defense, I think, handled Georgia Tech pretty well, held them to 28 points. I think they scored 30 in 5 out of their first 7 ACC games this season. They were held only under 27 only once. So, I mean, as by comparison to what most teams have done against Georgia Tech, Pitt did pretty well. Haynes King threw for 257, 2 touchdowns, and rushed for 76 yards and a touchdown, but he also threw the 2 interceptions. And those are a credit to Pitt. They're a credit to Pat Narduzzi's defense. And, you have to give him credit for that. You have to give him credit for rallying his team. I mean, they came out as the more determined team in this game, like at the start. And I don't think they maintained the energy that they had all game long, but they were firing on all cylinders on both sides of the ball throughout the first half. And even Pitt's defense, like the 2 touchdowns they gave up in the first half. I mean, one they give up because they get a 3rd down stop and Rasheem Biles taunts the Georgia Tech sideline. And whether it's a good call or not, that's inconsequential. don't even put yourself in that position. Don't even put yourself in a situation where they could throw a flag on you for taunting the Georgia Tech sideline. You just made a big stop on third down, a stop for loss on a 3rd and short. Get over to the other side, or get ready to either stop a 4th down attempt or go out on punt return or punt return. Don't even put yourself in that situation. And then the other one, the other one was a terrible punt that took an even worse bounce, and then they added 15 more yards on for a face mask penalty. And so Georgia Tech's second touchdown drive was 4 plays and 30 yards. It just wasn't Georgia Tech's offense was not moving the ball the way they have pretty much all year. They had 111 yards in the first half. They had how many rush yards? 39 rushing yards in the first half. They, Haynes King had thrown the interception. He was 12 of 20 for a touchdown and a pick. They were 2 of 9 on third down. It was an outstanding performance. And I do give Pat Narduzzi a lot of credit for that, partially designing the defense and the calls and everything like that, but also having the players ready to go. You can say a lot of things, but I think he gets his players fired up. I think he gets them to fight hard. And I don't know if I really feel like the defense fell off in the second half. Georgia Tech had 267 yards in the second half. Haynes King threw for 185. Georgia Tech rushed for 82 yards in the second half. They were still only 1 of 5 on third down and 0 of 2 on fourth down. They averaged 7 yards per play. But the reality is, Pitt was, for as good as Pitt played defensively in the first half, they weren't going to do that all game. Georgia Tech's too good offensively to be held down. This wasn't going to be a Wake Forest ACC championship game situation. I thought there were a few points where I thought, boy, Haynes King is about to pull a Sam Hartman, but he didn't. He kept fighting. He kept battling. I think you can make a pretty good case that he's the ACC player of the year. And so you weren't going to keep that bottled up all game. It was highly unlikely you were going to be able to have the kind of performance against Haynes King and Georgia Tech's offense that you had, like I say, against Wake Forest in the ACC championship game. That was the last game that kind of really felt similar in terms of really good offense, really prolific offense, very good at doing what they do, and Pitt really just kind of came out and shut them down. I didn't think that was going to last for 4 quarters. There was a reason I felt like even at 60.5 or 61.5 or 62.5, I felt like the over would hit because I thought this would be a high-scoring game. I wasn't buying into Georgia Tech's defense being that much better at home, although the numbers prove that out, that they are much better at home than they have been on the road this season. But I thought Pitt would be able to move the ball. I thought Pitt would be able to score points. And I thought Georgia Tech would get theirs too. And in the second half, they did. Georgia Tech got there. So I don't look at that as a failure of the defense. I look at that as just Georgia Tech having a really good offense and scoring like they did. But Pitt, because they started so hot on both sides of the ball, they staked themselves a lead that Georgia Tech ultimately could not overcome. Sideshow Sean says, just do's it. Yeah, that means a lot. There are a lot of ways you could take that. Kyle Peterson, 5663, says, Jakiri Turner looked incredible tonight. What a turnaround from the Notre Dame game. Crazy what happens when you don't enter the game saying it doesn't matter. It's not that. That's not why they got blown out by Notre Dame. And it's not why they, beat Georgia Tech by 2 touchdowns tonight. Both of those things happened for the reasons we said after the game last week. And all week, if you go back, read the things we wrote, watch the Morning Pit episodes, basically all week long, the main point that I kept trying to make was this. Notre Dame's really good. Notre Dame is the best team Pitt has faced all season. But Pitt isn't, the Notre Dame game was last week. Pitt didn't have to face Notre Dame again. They were back to ACC competition. And in ACC competition, Pitt is the highest scoring team in the conference against other ACC opponents in total points per game. And some of that includes defensive, touchdowns. So even when I took that out, Pitt was second, I think, in the conference among ACC teams in offensive touchdowns per game against conference opponents. They're really good against ACC teams. And tonight was no different. Well, they get 5 offensive touchdowns offensively tonight. They are, in games against ACC opponents, the best offense in the conference. the highest scoring offense in the conference. And I think what I said and what I wrote and what I believed was that once they got back to facing ACC opponents, you would see that again. You would see that high level of production. And you got it. It wasn't consistent throughout the game. I mean, they were on pace for like 600 yards and 50, 60 points or something like that. But what you got was like a really hot start. You got the really good Mason Heinschel, and then you got some outstanding running from Jakiri and Turner, because it's a lot easier to run against Georgia Tech than it is to run against Notre Dame. It's a lot easier to run against Stanford than it is against Notre Dame. It's a lot easier to pass and run against NC State and Boston College than it is against Notre Dame. Now, Miami's going to be a different animal, and we'll talk about that game, throughout the week. But what you had here was Pitt facing a team that with a talent level is a little bit closer and in some ways inferior at some positions, and taking advantage of those matchups and cashing it in. We got a lot of super chats. I want to get through all these. Let's see. But you know what? Right? I can't get too deep in the super chats without taking the shot. I mean, I think, and this might, somebody on Twitter said this should be a double shot game. This might be a double shot game, but look, I got to give the first double. I got to give the first shot. Okay. I go back and forth. There's two guys. They're each going to get one tonight anyway. So screw it. Who cares? Braylon Lovelace, 100-yard pick six, game-changing play. Maybe the play of the game. Maybe the play of the season. Maybe one of Pitt's best plays of the season. Didn't dodge. I mean, he got more yards than Rasheem Biles got on his 75-yard pick six. But, I don't know. Biles might have had to navigate a little bit more traffic. But in terms of a huge game, a huge play, changing the game, Braylon Lovelace, 100-yard pick six. He gets the shot of the game. Of course, the shot of the game is the Backshore Apparel shot of the game. Backshore was born in Pittsburgh, but built on the Tampa coast. Designed for days by the water, salt in the air, but it didn't stop there. Today, Backshore hats are built for every season and every forecast, whether you're chasing waves, hitting the trail, putting for birdie or bogey, or braving the Pittsburgh cold. Wherever life takes you, Backshore has you covered. Explore the collection at BackshoreApparel.com. Backshore, coastal roots, all weather ready. Listen, go check out BackshoreApparel.com. It's our good friend Mike. He is a huge Pitt fan, big supporter of the podcast, big supporter of Panther-Lair.com. He was a Alliance 412 member. He's a Panther Club member. Mike is a big Pitt fan. He's got great stuff. BackshoreApparel.com. Mike, we thank you for being a supporter of the everything we do here. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. All right. Speaking of Mike's, super chatter from Michael B comes in and says, Chris, I think the Fire Narduzzi posts on the message board were going to come out in full force had Pitt lost this game. The fake punt was inexcusable. Question, if Pitt beats Miami and misses the ACC championship game, do they get a good bowl? So, yes, to your first point, the Fire Narduzzi posts would be in full force, even more than they usually are, if Pitt had lost this game after that fake punt. And I'm sure that no matter what happens this week, no matter where the conversations go or the tone of the board changes, there will be plenty of posts pointing out how bad of an idea that fake punt was. To the bowl question, look at 9-3, they should be in line for a good bowl. I mean, I think if you look over the years, so I mean, 2015, they won 8 games. And they went to the Military Bowl. 2016, they won 8 games. They went to the Pinstripe Bowl. 2018, they were in the ACC Championship game, so they got the Sun Bowl. 2019, they won 7 games, and they went to Detroit. 2020, they said no thank you to any bowl. 2021, obviously, the Peach Bowl. 2022, they won 9 games in the regular season. They won 8 games in the regular season. Excuse me, went to the Sun Bowl again. And then last year, they win 7 games and they go back to Detroit. So if there's any consistency, well, there's none, really. I guess the consistency is if they only win 7 games, they're going to go to Detroit. But given that they've now won 8 games, I guess Detroit is off the table. Look, I don't know. I mean, if they lose to Miami and they end up 8-4, it would seem like the Pinstripe Bowl or the Military Bowl or one of those kinds. That level of bowl game is probably in play. If they beat Miami, But Virginia and SMU both win next weekend, and Pitt misses the ACC championship game. I don't know what that next level up would it be. The Sun Bowl? Would the Sun Bowl want them back for the third time in like 8 years? Second time in the last 4 seasons. I'm not sure, but I don't know what else would be like. One of the better Florida bowls, maybe. I would have to look at the ACC's bowl. What have you, bowl tie-ins and things like that. So I haven't dug too deep into that yet. Maybe this week will be a good week to start reaching out and seeing what the possibilities are there. If Pitt were to be 8-4, or 9-3, ACC championship game, no ACC championship game. But I would think they would get a decent bowl. They're not going to go to Detroit. I would say that. Even if they lose to Miami, they should not be in Detroit. So if you don't go to Detroit or Birmingham, which is, some people call Detroit South, not me. I would never say anything like that. I call Detroit Birmingham North. But if as long as you're not going to Detroit or Birmingham, no disrespect to the fine people who occupy those cities, then I think you're in a pretty good spot. John Jingleheimer Schmidt, 1976, says, wild game, just win, baby. Which is the real Pitt team, the first half or the second half? All of it, right? This is a team with a quarterback who's capable of making a lot of plays, with a freshman running back who's looks like he can be a stud, with good, solid receivers. I mean, Raphael Williams couldn't come down with that big pass kind of late in the game, but he had 2 back-to-back really good catches and really big plays. Kenny Johnson is legit. I think we know that. Shout out to Justin Holmes for scoring touchdowns on back-to-back plays. And on the first one, I thought it was even more impressive. I mean, okay, a couple of thoughts on the Justin Holmes touchdowns, right? So the first one I thought was really impressive. The one that got called back on Lyndon Cooper and Ryan Baer being inelligibly downfield. Holmes catches that and just bullied his way into the end zone. We've often made that joke about why Marshall listed him as a 5'10" fullback or something like that. But he played like a 5'10" fullback on that play, when he bullied his way into the end zone. Of course, comes back 5 yards back instead of a 14-yard touchdown. He gets a 19-yard touchdown. And I think that play looked familiar. Do you remember Gavin Bartholomew? And I was trying to remember if this was last year or 2023. Gavin Bartholomew catching multiple touchdowns on a play pretty similar to that. Kind of a tight end up the seam, tight end kind of post route kind of. That you could, potentially, depending on how the defense is lined up, you could get killed at the goal line when you catch it. But shout out to Justin Holmes for catching that. So, who is this Pitt team? Are they the first half or the second half? I mean, I think it's all part of the package. It's a team that does have the weapons and the quarterback to go down the field at any point and drive the length of the field. I mean, you saw it on the final drive. What had Pitt done prior to that final touchdown drive? I will tell you. Starting the second half, first drive of the second half, 7 plays, 20 yards. Second drive of the second half, 3 plays minus 10 yards. Next drive, first drive of the fourth quarter, 5 plays, 16 yards. Next drive, and they turned it over on downs, 4 plays, well, not turn it over on downs, they tried a fake punt. 4 plays minus 2 yards. So up until that point, they had run 7 for 20, 3 for 10. So that's 10 for 10 yards, right? Then 5 for 16. So you're now at 15 plays, 26 yards. And then 4 for minus 2. So 19 plays and 24 yards. So up until that point, their first 4 possessions of the second half, Pitt ran 19 plays and gained, 24 yards. And then Ja'Kyrie Turner goes 56 yards on a handoff. They have that kind of explosiveness to do that. And it's frustrating to watch, and you feel like they'll never get out of it, but it only takes 1 or 2 of those kinds of plays and they can hit, and boom. Now it's a totally different game. I mean, that's that Desmond Reed effect too. Reed could do that. And I think Turner is showing that he can do it as well. That, he can hit that home run. He's got that speed, and he did. And that one was right up the middle. And he just got a great block from Ryan Baer, and he was gone. And Georgia Tech couldn't catch him. Notre Dame might have been able to catch him. Georgia Tech couldn't catch him. So I think it's all of it. I don't, nobody scores touchdowns every drive. maybe if you spread the touchdowns out, if instead of going punt, touchdown, 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 if you went punt, touchdown, punt, touchdown, punt, touchdown, punt, you know what I mean? If you spread those 5 touchdowns out a little bit more among Pitt's 13 possessions, maybe you feel a little different about the consistency of their offense and consistency of their scoring. It just so happened they stacked 4 touchdowns in the first, 12, 15, 18, 19 minutes of the game. They just piled them all up there and staked a lead that Georgia Tech couldn't overcome. And then as far as Pitt's defense, like I said, I mean, they gave up 2 touchdowns in the second quarter and 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. So shut them out in the first quarter, shut them out in the third quarter, and ultimately got the stops they needed to get, including 2 interceptions against a quarterback who I think had thrown 2 interceptions all season. Like, this is who they are. Like, you're going to give up some plays and you're going to make some big plays. And so, you ask, which is the real Pitt team? It's all the real Pitt team. Davey G NYC says Pitt loves to be giant killers and loves being under the lights. I think this shows they can match up well versus Miami. Never would have believed we'd be here. Well, the thing about Miami, and again, I don't want to go too far into that game because we'll have all week to do that. And tonight we're just going to drink and talk about winning at Georgia Tech. The thing about Miami is the pass rush. And, I think Georgia Tech was 12th in the ACC in sacks against conference opponents this season. They had 6 sacks tonight, I think it was. Is that where they finished up? Yeah, 6 sacks on Mason Heinchel. And so pass protection continues to be an issue. Maybe there was a little bit of maybe it was a little bumpy getting Jeff Percy and Kendall Stanley working together on the left side. I thought they had some pretty good plays over there. But they also, certainly gave up some pressure. But the pressure was coming from all. I mean, the pressure came up the middle. Pressure came off the right side. I can't say it was just Percy and Stanley that gave up that pressure. It was all over the place. So, that's going to be a concern with Miami. And I don't know if Pitt has any good solutions for that other than being able to continue to effectively run the ball. If they can run the ball against Miami like they did tonight, they can really have a shot. If they can't, then I think it's going to be a really long day. I assume day. I haven't seen anything. I don't know if they've announced a start time yet, but we'll keep an eye out for that. Brock Mandanic says Jakiri Turner, Boozy, is going to get a nice hefty, hefty up in NIL this offseason. He's a stud. Yeah. Like, when you talk about guys that Pitt is going to have to work to retain and pay to retain, like, Jakiri Turner is now high on that list. He's number 2 behind Mason Heinchel. It's Heinchel and then it's Turner. You got to bring those guys back for next year, because if you do, you got the foundation of a great offense or a really good offense. You see what happens with Kenny Johnson, what he decides to do after his junior season. Raphael Williams is done. Sincere Lee will be back. I didn't see Sincere Lee at all in this game. I'll have to look at the participation chart and check the snaps and stuff, but I don't remember seeing him play hardly at all. I mean, most of the receiver reps, I think, were taken by Kenny Johnson, Raphael Williams, and Blue Hicks. Deuce Spann and Bryce Yates obviously got some time out there a little bit, but I didn't really see. Sincere Lee should have been able to, I mean, he was able to play in this game, and he would have been able to play and still preserve his red shirt, but I didn't really see him. But anyway, he'll be back next year. And then you have some of these younger guys, Blue Hicks will be back. Bryce Yates, like I mentioned, Tony Kinsler, and, some guys coming in. But I would have to think they'll try to see what they can find in the transfer portal at wide receiver. But either way, you're right. To your point, Brock, going to have to pay up to keep Jakiri Turner. Penn 68 says, great win and bounce back after getting punched in the mouth last week. This is a huge bounce back on the road. The team showed they have heart. And they showed that they're a good ACC team. Like, this is what I was thinking, like, early in the game. I was like, you know what? Yeah, man. Like, this is the same thing we've been saying all season. I'll go back to it. And people have brought it up, and I've reflected on it a lot too, partially because I think I was kind of right about it. And again, I don't get a lot of things right. So I reflect back on it. What we said after the Louisville game. After the Louisville game, I sat here and I said, look, there's a good team here. A good team, a good ACC team. They just need to fix a couple problems. And they fixed that problem by changing quarterbacks. No disrespect to no disrespect to Eli Holstein, but they fixed that problem on offense by changing quarterbacks because there is a good ACC team here. And this is what, you said they showed they have heart. They do, but I mean, thought they had heart last week against Notre Dame. I don't think, like I never doubted that, but I also didn't doubt that they could be a good ACC team. And I think what they showed tonight is that they are a good ACC team, a team that could go against, a team that was having its, I don't know, feels like too much to say that Georgia Tech was having its dream season, but on the Wednesday Night Live show, Jim compared Georgia Tech this year to he was like, this is their Pitt 2021 season, that they're having that kind of year where they're just really rolling and having almost a generational kind of season. And Pitt showed that they can compete with a team that's playing that well. Pitt showed that they can, jump on top of a team on the road and then hold on and get the win. So, I mean, I think that's, if you want one big picture takeaway from tonight, it's that, yes, Pitt is still a good ACC team. They're 6-1 in the conference. And I think if you are Pitt in most years, like context removed, because I think the context is relevant and we can add that context, but I think in most years, if you're Pitt, 8-4 and 6-2 is a good year. 8-4 and 6-2 is a good year. And I'm not saying this is some sort of like preemptive rationalization if they lose to Miami or anything like that. But I would have said this in August, that 8-4, 6-2 is a good year. I think going 6-2 in the conference is good. I think that's a solid season, and in a way, like, I think there's a real separation between 7-5 and 8-4. Like, 7-5 and 8-4 feel farther apart for me than 6-6 and 7-5. Like, obviously 6-6, you're only 500. You didn't win more than you lose. But like 7-5, I mean, that's a 40-degree day. Like, nobody gets excited about a 40-degree day. Nobody cares about 7-5. Like 8-4, that's 50 degrees. I mean, shoot, we'll be out there having a barbecue in that. There's a break there, and I think there's a pretty big break between 8-4 and 9-3. But if you can get 8-4 and you can do it with a 6-2 conference record, like there again, you get into sort of, get into the weeds with some of these numbers. If you go 8-4, but you only go 5-3 in your conference, or 4-4 in your conference because you stacked cupcakes in the non-conference and you went 4-0 or 3-1, that's one thing. But I think going 8-4 with a 6-2 ACC record, that's pretty good. I think that's a very solid and good season for Pitt that should get you into a bowl game that you could potentially win to get to 9 wins. And then you had a good year. And then you add in the context of like where they started, the fact that they started off 2-2, that they lost their first 2 Power 4 conference games, that they made a change at quarterback. They went to a true freshman quarterback who has now won 6 out of his 7 starts. And is 6-0 against conference opponents. You had that context in, and you're like, yeah, this is a pretty good year. It's a pretty good performance. And this is before you even get to the Miami game. I think what they've done so far would constitute a pretty good season, pretty good performance from where they were to where they are now. John Waffle says, I love it. When was this posted? 11:04 p.m. This was after the game. John Waffle says, time to move on from Narduzzi. This guy enjoys losing and choking games away. We should be 10-1 right now and clinch the title. Like, I'm not laughing. Like I understand the sentiment, right? Like I understand where you're coming from. Like, I'm not laughing at you like, how could you even suggest such a thing? I'm laughing because we're talking after a win. Like, this is what I said at the very beginning. Like, this is what I said at the very beginning of this thing is like Pitt at its best. And this doesn't happen every game. This doesn't, it might only happen a couple times a season and maybe only once a season. Maybe you'll have a season where it doesn't happen at all. But like Pitt at its best gives you something to complain about and still wins. And so you get to be in your natural state, your happiest state, your most comfortable state, which is complaining about things and being mad about Pitt. But you also get to do it after a win. Like we're all sitting here. I assume, I don't know how jovial you are, John Waffle H2P70. But I think we're all sort of jovially complaining about a bad idea of a fake punt. While also, celebrating a win that gets like, I just had a long rant about how getting to this point at 8-3 and 6-1 constitutes a good season. So, but it's just funny. I mean, because like here, like John Waffle, like you have the opportunity to sit there and be really pissed that they tried that fake punt and almost choked the game away, but you can be that mad after a win. It's a special place. I don't know if other like teams or programs have this kind of like I don't know if their fan bases have this opportunity, to be, have multiple opportunities every season to like really be mad and also be enjoying a win. Old Panther 76 says, I've been waiting for a fake punt all year, just not there. 100% Narduzzi's fault. It happened, but I doubt it was Narduzzi that called that. If it was anyone other than Pat Narduzzi that called that, that person should be fired. That's a decision only the head coach should make. Only the head coach should make. And I mean, I don't actually mean anyone should be fired, because the special teams coach is Jacob Bernowski, and I think he's pretty good. And I don't think they should fire him. But like fake punts, onside kicks, going for it on fourth down, all those things should only be called by the head coach. It should only be the head coach who says, let's go for this here. And whether it's the head coach or not, he takes responsibility for it, because he's on the headsets. And if he hears a call of like, hey, let's try a fake punt here, like it's incumbent on him to call a timeout and be like, no, the F not. We're not trying a fake punt here. So whether he decided it or not, and I'd be shocked if it wasn't his decision, the only possible explanation, and I saw no indication on TV that this might have been it, but do you remember a couple years ago, it might have been when they played Rhode Island, I think in like 2022, and like at the end of the game, they tried an onside kick. They were winning by like 5 touchdowns or something like that, and they tried an onside kick. And like what had happened was the guy who signals things in to the special teams, not one of the assistant coaches, but like a GA or something like that, signals things in, got the wrong signal. Like he heard the wrong thing in his headset, and he thought he heard go for an onside kick. So he signaled in what he heard. It wasn't his decision. He just misheard what was said to him. And so maybe, like, I'll allow the slightest possibility that that's what happened. And I haven't looked to see what I should look up either Jim or Stephen Thompson or one of the guys who is down there to see what they say. Okay, this is good because I just looked up our good friend Stephen Thompson posted this about 25 minutes ago. This is great. This is a shot of the game. All right. I am going to read you the quote that Stephen Thompson posted. He posted it on Blue Sky. I don't know if Jim posted it on Twitter or not. I'll look and check because I want to give credit to our guys. But this is a shot of the game quote if I ever saw one. Let me just see if Jim posted. It doesn't matter if Jim posted it, but hopefully he did to get the engagement. Let me see. Jim didn't post a quote. Okay, here's what Steven posted. So let's see. Should I do the shot first and then read the quote, or should I read the quote and then do the shot? I think I'm going to read the quote and then do the shot because this is fantastic. Quoting Stephen Thompson from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, quoting Pat Narduzzi on the fake punt decision, quote, I'm a dumbass. Just a coach trying to make a play. We hadn't run a fake punt all year. I'll wear that one. You can chalk those 7 points up to Coach Narduzzi. That is fantastic. That is fantastic, folks. I love it. I love it. That's reminiscent of after the 2022 Tennessee game, the following Monday. I think Jerry DePaula, our old friend from the Tribune Review, asked Pat Narduzzi about why he was still trying to run plays. You remember that there was a play right at the end of the first half where Keaton Slovis got knocked out, or maybe not knocked out, but knocked out of the game. And Jerry was asking Narduzzi about, like, did you kneel down or why didn't you do this or that? And Narduzzi just said, "I'm a dumbass, Jerry." And there it is. He dropped it right out there. According to Stephen Thompson, Pat Narduzzi said, quote, "I'm a dumbass, just a coach trying to make a play. We hadn't run a fake punt all year. I'll wear that one. You can chalk those 7 points up to Coach Narduzzi." Sir, we absolutely will. All right, another Wombat. You guys all have different names tonight. Did everybody have to log in under a different name, or am I just seeing different things? Anyway, another Wombat says, "I think we saw exactly who Pitt is, a top 25 team that isn't a top 10 team. It gives me hope for the future, but we will see next week against Miami." I think that's a good way to look at Pitt. I think Pitt looks like a top 25 team that's not a top 10 team. I think they should move back into the college football playoff rankings because they beat a ranked opponent on the road by 2 touchdowns. So I would think they'll move back into the top 25. I would have to look at the, out of town scoreboard and see what other teams in the college football playoff, top 25 did, but they feel like a top 25 team, not a top 10 team. And they showed that against a top 10 team last week, but against another top 25 team, they went on the road and won, and they were the better team tonight. Who knows what happens if Pitt plays Georgia Tech 10 times, but they don't have to play Georgia Tech 10 times. Play them once, and they won. CJT2727 says Pitt controls its own destiny at this point. Exciting and scary to think about. EGK H2P. EGK, of course, Pitt's one of Pitt's slogans this year. Everybody's gonna know. I used that one last week after the Notre Dame game. Said everyone did know, and just not in the way that Pitt wanted them to. They don't control their own destiny, though. That's the only flaw here. They do need to win out, but they need some help as well. I think SMU is playing Cal and Virginia is playing Virginia Tech. You need one of those games to go your way. You need SMU to lose a game or Virginia to lose a game next weekend, in addition to Pitt winning. If Pitt beats Miami and one of those teams loses, you don't need both, just one. If that happens, Pitt will make the ACC championship game. And so in that sense, no. So in no sense, they don't control their own destiny, but they do control their own destiny for getting to 9 wins, so they control that destiny. But we thank you, CJT2727, for being a super chatter. Josh Newark, also super chatter. He just pointed out that quote. You posted that 14 minutes ago, Josh. I'm just now catching up to it, but I love it. Says Pat Narduzzi's direct post-game quote was, "I'm a dumbass." The Whiskey Coach says, is the super chatter, says, "Excited we have a meaningful season finale at home. Sign me up for this if you'd have asked me in August." Yeah, and you know what? This was like a big thing we said. This was a big thing we said maybe after the Florida State game, maybe after the Syracuse game, after the NC State game. Like, as those wins started piling up with Mason Heinzel, we talked about this final 3-game stretch, right? The final quarter of the season. We said, look, you just want to get through these games, the Boston College, Florida State, Syracuse, NC State, Stanford run. You want to get through those games. And I think we talked about it probably most after the Florida State game. We're like, look, get through these next 3 games, win these next 3. So the final month of the season, the final quarter of the season, these final 3 games mean something, that you're playing for something, that you go into the Notre Dame game at 7-2. So that you have 2 7-2 teams facing off. You potentially get a ABC time slot and college game day. Well, all those things came to pass, right? Like, that happened. And then, regardless of what happens against Notre Dame, you've got these final 2 games that'll matter. You've got these final 2 games that'll actually count for something. Like, both teams tonight were playing for something, had a lot on the line. Like, Georgia Tech needed to win this game tonight to get into the ACC championship game and get into the college football playoffs. And now their chances are significantly decreased by losing this game. Maybe they go out and beat Georgia next week and get themselves right back into the conversation, completely redeem themselves. Maybe they don't. I don't know. But they needed this game. to get into the ACC championship, which was probably, like Pitt, their most direct path to the playoffs. And for Pitt, they needed to win to keep that hope alive. They needed to keep alive the hope of getting to the ACC championship game, potentially getting to the college football playoffs. And so you want to be in a position where the games matter, where the games have significance, where they have relevance for you, for your opponent, and for the rest of the conference and the rest of college football. This was a significant game in college football. And you watch Twitter, like, people were paying attention. People were watching. And not in like a sick, twisted, I'll watch any college football that's on, like it was with the bowl game against Toledo, where everybody in the world saw that one. This was a game of consequence. And that's what you want. You want your team to be in games of consequence, because all too often, like, look, by mid-November last year, by November 22nd last year, or November 12th or November 2nd, like, Pitt wasn't playing games of consequence. 2 years ago, Pitt wasn't playing games of consequence. 3 years ago, Pitt wasn't playing games of consequence at this point in the season. 4 years ago, they were. 5 years ago, nothing mattered. 6 years ago, they weren't playing games of consequence. 7 years ago, they were. 7 years ago. So twice in the last 7 years, they've played games that matter in the month of November. This is exactly where you want to be. And whether it goes your way or not, at least these games, like, I think when we get past next week's game, right, we're going to look back collectively. Even if Pitt loses to Miami, they go 1-2 in November, and be like, wow, shout out to them for getting themselves in a position where those games mattered, where there was something riding on. Because even in 2022, where they went 4-0 in November, they beat Duke and Virginia and Syracuse and somebody else. Doesn't matter. Even then, they went 4-0, but at that point, they were out of the race for the ACC championship. And so they weren't really playing for anything other than just trying to salvage their record. And they did, and that was great. But it's not like we got to, the end of November or Thanksgiving or the first week of December, like, wow, there was so much riding on those games. Nobody cared. Like, it didn't matter what happened in those games. They had 2 pick sixes to open the Virginia game that year. Nobody cared. Other than like an oddity, like, hey, look at that weird thing that happened in the Pitt game. But like now, like, these games matter. They're significant. And I think that's what you want. You know what I mean? You want to have games of relevance. And they do. And last week was one. Tonight was one. Next week will be one. And it's a credit to Pitt, to the players, to the coaches, and everybody involved. They put themselves in that position for those games to matter. Because they did. It's a product of what they did in October and the winning streak that they went on, that these games mattered. Oh, man, finish my beer. Whatever am I going to do? Well, I know. Pull down my backup. Look at that. I knew this was going to be one of those live streams that we would go for a while and talk extra long. So I brought an extra one. Hopefully it's not too warm. It's just right. Although following an IPA with a blonde, it's going to take a little getting used to. Sean Piatek. I hope I get that right. Sean, you always comment on the videos. I hope I'm saying it right. Piatek. Sean says, I called it earlier this week. Georgia Tech is paper tigers. Haynes King is average. Miami Hurricanes can be had. When was the last 200-yard rusher for Pitt? That's a great question, actually. You would think I would look this up, or someone else might have already looked it up, but Pitt has a last time. Here we go. Rushing. Last time with 200 yards rushing, Izzy Abanikanda, 320 against Virginia Tech in 20. Well, it says 2020, but it was 2022. Yeah, that's a typo. I'm going to have to reach out to our friends who do the Pitt game notes. Yeah. Because they say that Izzy Abanikanda against Virginia Tech for the last 200-yard rushing game was in 2020, but that was actually 2022. So that was the last one. I don't think Georgia Tech is paper tigers, though. Or, yeah, paper tigers. Their schedule is very similar to Pitt. They don't really have like an equivalent. I forget. I kind of compared Georgia Tech's schedule and Pitt's schedule. They're very similar, like a lot of overlap. Colorado and West Virginia, kind of a similarity there. But like, I don't think Haynes King is average. I think he's an awesome player. I think he's really good. He missed on a couple throws, but he also made some great throws. The one touchdown that the guy dragged his feet in the back of the end zone, just outstanding pass from Haynes King. Like, that dude's a really good player, and he puts his life on the line a lot. And like, I think Pitt clearly went into this game saying we are going to hit him as often and as hard as we can and try to knock him out of this game. And that dude just kept getting up. It wasn't even slow about it either. He's a warrior. He's a heck of a player. You know, you can put him on my team any day. Like, I don't think Haynes King is average. Can Miami be had? I mean, Miami's Miami. You know, they always have the potential to, blow it. I'm actually going to check the ACC scoreboard, see what Miami is up to these days. Miami beat Virginia Tech 34-17. I was thinking that would be a game if Miami had lost that one that, potentially they would have given up because they would be, 8-3, 4-3 in the ACC, and they'd be, kind of cashing it in. But alas, they won that game. I don't know. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a tough game. It'll probably be their second toughest game of the season after Notre Dame, but we'll see what Pitt can do. Travis Spagnolo says, what are the attendance projections for next week? I don't care about the students being gone. They've been lifeless all year. Lots of Miami fans in Fox Chapel. That's weird. Why are there a lot of Miami fans in Fox Chapel? I didn't know that. I have a friend who lives in Fox Chapel. I'll have to ask him. Do you know a lot of Miami friends out there? I don't know what attendance is going to look like. It is going to be tough with the students because it's Thanksgiving weekend. Hopefully Pitt can find some kind of, promotions and sales, ticket discounts and whatnot to try to get people into the stands because it should have a good crowd. I mean, senior day, Miami, something on the line, a team that I think deserves to have people come out and support them. Should be a good crowd, but you never know. Coffee 8087 says, by moving to Mason Heights, Pitt not only saved the season, they have potentially set themselves up for the next several years to be relevant. To be relevant. Yeah, I mean, they definitely found something. Mason Heights made some pretty amazing plays. I shouldn't say amazing. He made some great plays in the first half. He struggled a bit in the second half. Let me see what his second half stats were. They have comparisons here. Heinschel in the second half, he only had 37 passing yards in the second half. So not great. 6 of 8 for 37 yards in the second half. Still felt like they were dropping back to pass too much. He got sacked twice in the second half. Sacked once in the fourth quarter. 3 of 5 for 20 yards in the fourth quarter. 3 of 3 for 17 yards in the third quarter. So not all that hot, but Mason Heights looks really good, obviously. I think we all know that. We all have come to agree that he is a very, very good quarterback prospect and should be very good for Pitt for years to come. He should only keep getting better. I think that's the biggest thing. And he's got a really good running back with him, Jakarian Turner, who, like, we probably haven't talked about enough. Like, Jakarian Turner has been pretty outstanding in games without Desmond Reed and even in some games with Desmond Reed. He had the big game. What was his big game? 127 yards on 22 carries at Stanford. He only had 5 carries for 15 yards last week, but then he bounces back this week, runs for 201 on 21 carries. He's just been really, really good. And I think the future looks super bright for him as well. Joe New says, let's hope for snow and cold next Saturday. I remember games where Miami would come to Heinz Field or Acrisure Stadium or whatever it was at the time on a cold, end of season game, and they'd be out there like without t-shirts on, without jerseys on, or without shirts on, like either wearing short sleeves or no shirt at all, warming up just to show that they weren't intimidated by the cold. So I don't know if that really will phase them much. I just think it'll come down to the running game. If Pitt can run against Miami, they're going to have a great chance. If they can't, then the pass rush is going to tee off, and it's going to be tough for Mason Heichel. All right, that's all the super chatters so far. If anybody else wants to jump in, you can. That'd be great. Let's see. I'll just start rolling through all the chats and comments and questions. Josh Newark says the best thing about tonight is it makes next week meaningful, which is all we can ask for. Let's beat the Canes and see who we play in Charlotte. Well, you need Virginia or SMU to lose. So it's not just beating the Canes. But if you beat the Canes, like, look, if they beat Miami, it doesn't matter what Virginia and SMU do. We can sit back and say, oh, damn, they just really blew it against Louisville if they could have won that game. But you know what? Like, 2021 had that too. Oh, they could have just beat Miami or they could have just beat Western Michigan. Like, who cares? Not who cares, but if you beat Miami, you're 9-3. You're 7-1 with Mason Heichel as the starting quarterback. You've gone 7-1 since your 2-2 start. Even if you miss the ACC championship game, you had a hell of a season, a really good season. And you end up in a decent bowl. To that question earlier. So we'll see where they end up. Benjamin Glazer says Ja'Kyrie and Turner saved Pat Narduzzi's job. Also, it seemed like a lot of guys were slipping and sliding tonight, not just Blue Hicks. Do they not trim the artificial turf? I don't know. I noticed some slipping and sliding. I actually thought guys slipped and slid Thursday night in the basketball game in Central Florida. It seemed like guys were sliding on the floor a lot. Pitt guys. I don't know. Felt like it was Okinawa again. Remember that? When there was condensation on the floor? James Robinson almost broke his ankle. Josh Newark says Haynes King played like Haynes underwear. Great defense today. Like, Pitt did well against Haynes King, but he still had more than 300 yards of total offense. He threw for 257 and 2 touchdowns, 76 yards rushing, and a touchdown. I mean, Haynes King, I can't take anything away from his performance. Like, other than, like, he played really poorly in the first quarter. But after that, he played like Haynes King, who has been really good all season long. I don't think there's anything, like, I'm not taking anything away from Haynes King's performance. I think he is really, he's a really good player. And even tonight, he damn near brought him back. It was a 1 touchdown game before Ja'Kyrie Turner runs for 56 yards. And that wasn't his fault. So, you know what the biggest mistake Haynes King made is he didn't read Braylon Lovelace dropping into coverage. And the thing is, so on that pick 6, so Pitt was in its Delta defensive sub package, right? It's what they use on third down a lot. They take a defensive lineman off the field. They take a defensive tackle off the field and bring in an extra safety or an extra defensive back. And they almost play it like a 3-4 kind of. And when they were lined up there, they had their 3 down linemen. And I was a little bit surprised that they went to it at all. It was whatever, 3rd and goal or 2nd and goal or something like that at the 5 or 4 yard line. That close, like that short of distance, they don't always use it on 3rd down. If it's 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 3, they sometimes won't go to that Delta defensive sub package because they feel like they give up something in their run stopping, their run defense. And so sometimes they'll keep their base defense on the field. So I was surprised when that play was at the 4 or the 5, wherever it was. I wrote it down as a 5. It might have been at the 4. I was surprised Pitt went with that defensive sub package there because it's it's a pass defense. And it's a pass defense in terms of having more defensive backs on the field. And it's a pass defense in the way they play it, where they have 3 down linemen, 3 linebackers. They move guys around. They have guys standing up. They have guys rushing from different spots. They might show that they're going to rush 6 and only rush 3. They might show that they're going to rush 3 and they'll rush 4 plus 1 more comes on the delayed blitz. They do a lot of different stuff. They really try to confuse you and send pressure from lots of different places. And I've seen times where, based on what they're showing, it looks like they're going to rush 5 or 6. They drop a bunch of guys and they get pressure with only rushing 3 out of that package. So on that play, they lined up. They have their 3 down linemen, and they had Rasheem Biles, they had Kyle Lewis, and they had Braylon Lovelace all basically at the line of scrimmage. Lovelace and Lewis, or Biles and Lewis on the outside, and Lovelace in the middle, kind of in the middle of the defensive line. It's almost to the point where I was like, is that Isaiah Neal standing up? Are they still in base defensive personnel with 4 D linemen and Isaiah Neal standing up in the middle of the line of scrimmage? But then he dropped back, and I'm like, no, it's not Neal. Who is that? Oh, it's Lovelace. And Lovelace dropped back and got the interception at the goal line. But a lot of times when they line up like that, more often than not, I would wager that more often than not, that when Haynes King watched film of Pitt, when they were in that Delta package, that usually if there was a linebacker at the line of scrimmage between the defensive tackles, he was rushing. Or not between the defensive tackles, but among the defensive linemen, he was going to rush. If anybody dropped, it was the edge guys. And so I don't think, obviously, Haynes King wasn't expecting Braylon Lovelace to drop into coverage on that play. Shout out to Braylon Lovelace for recognizing where the play was probably going and drifting off to that side. I don't know if he was just watching Haynes King's eyes or what he did, but he read the play perfectly and got the interception there. That was a mistake by King. I don't think he was anticipating a linebacker dropping there. I think he was expecting Lovelace to rush. I think he was expecting Lovelace to do what Lovelace probably does out of that look 9 times out of 10. Well, the 1 time out of 10 that he doesn't rush, that was on that play. Perfect call by Randy Bates or Pat Narduzzi or whoever called it, and perfect execution by Braylon Lovelace to make the play, get down there for a 100-yard pick six. Super chatter, Ms. Priya Lal says, how can Mason stop taking big sacks, 10-plus yards? You know, I noticed that too. And I think, like, Mason Heinchel he's athletic. He's fast. I was like, why is he not able to get out of these sacks more often? And part of it was, like, the pressure was on him. And it kind of, the pressure got to Mason Heinchel where he would like to run. Right? If he would like to run to his right, it was right there. And it was hard for him to find those scramble lanes that he found in some of the earlier games. How can you stop him from taking big sacks? Oh, block for him better is probably the best way I would say. I still don't know why there aren't more rollout passes and sprint out passes and plays that, sort of move the pocket by design. I don't know why that doesn't seem to be a bigger part of Pitt's offense. It really hasn't been. I don't think it really was with Eli Holstein. It hasn't been with Mason Heinchel so far. But that's just what Cade Bell calls. But, that might be an option to move the pocket, to roll the pocket intentionally and have him roll out and make passes and make plays that way. That might help avoid some of the sacks. Let's see. AND30 at 10:38 p.m. said, fire Narduzzi. I don't even know if the game was over at that point. Maybe that was around the fake punt. Benjamin Glazer says, random question, is Pitt the only school that brings its campus police to guard the coach and not state police? I don't know. I've never really noticed. But Pitt does. Pitt sticks with the campus police. And I guess... state police are kind of in the news after the Texas A&M South Carolina thing, but I don't know. It's an interesting question. But Pitt is always, like, for as long as I've covered the team, they've had like a Pitt police officer accompanying the coach and going on the road with the team. Let's see. Mr. John says, oh, there it is. Mr. John says the fake punt was stupid. I don't think anyone would disagree with you about that. Another Wombat says, I've been a huge Narduzzi defender, and don't get me wrong, we won and I'm happy, but holy crap, there are just some moments where I cannot fathom what he's thinking. Well, this goes back to my original point. We're 70 minutes into this thing, 68 minutes into this live stream, and it's still the original point. Like, Pitt at its best, and like there are probably a few hundred of you that have been watching since the beginning, and I appreciate you, and I apologize for repeating myself, but we're 2 shots and a couple beers in, so we might do that a few times. This is what it's like hanging out with me at the bar, is I just end up repeating myself. Pitt at its best gives you something to complain about and wins. And it doesn't happen all the time. There are plenty of times they give you something to be mad about and they lose, but at their best, like I almost feel like and I don't know if Pitt fans would admit this, because I don't know if Pitt fans recognize it, but I almost feel like Pitt fans, in their ideal situation, they can walk out of a game with something to complain about after a win. So that it's not like, oh, that was really dumb and it cost us the game. It's like, that was really dumb and somehow Pitt is 8-3. And that's what today was. Let's see. Super chatter here. What's your name? Gel011. Is that a Taylor and a Telly over your shoulder? Also, why couldn't we move the ball after halftime? It is a Telecaster. You're right about that. The electric is a Telecaster. The acoustic is like, I forget what it's called. It's made by Martin, but it's not actually a Martin. So, but yes, good recognition by you on the Telecaster. I wish it was a Strat, but we don't make enough money off YouTube to buy a Strat. Why couldn't Pitt move the ball after halftime? You know what? That's actually a good question. Let's get back to some like real football talk here. So let's look at the drives after halftime. Okay. So first drive of the second half. Okay. Pitt picks up a first down with a Jakarian Turner run on 3rd and 1. And then they end up in a 3rd and 4 at the Pitt 43. Wait, there was before that. 2nd and 7 at the Pitt 41. Jakarian Turner gets a big run. And they call holding, and I think they called it on, like TV was saying they were calling it on Raphael Williams. I think they called it on Blue Hicks. I think they said holding number 3 on the offense. Dicey call. They end up getting at the spot of the foul, so it still turns into a 4-yard gain for Jakarian Turner. And so 2nd and 7, instead of being a first down, ends up being 2nd and 3. And on 2nd and 3, this was the play where Turner got the handoff, came up the middle, bounced outside, but he tripped and fell. He tripped over, I think, Kendall Stanley's foot. There was room to run, so he would have had a first down. That leaves them in 3rd and 4. They take out Turner. They bring in Juelz Goff. They run that pitch play to Goff. Like, Jakarian Turner was running really well. Maybe the pitch play to Jakarian Turner is a play I could get on board with. Maybe Juelz Goff running up the middle on 3rd and 4 at the Pitt 43 would be a play I could get on board with. The pitch play out to Juelz Goff is not a play I can get on board with. And it gained 1 yard. And they ended up punting. But never mind that 3rd down play. You have a questionable holding call on a long run. And then you have a play where, I mean, he would have run for a first down. Turner would, if he didn't slip. So that drive ends up as a punt. But it's not like they were really stopped. You know what I'm saying? Like I look at that drive and I'm like, well, they were still able to move the ball. And should have been able to move the ball. They get, Georgia Tech's next drive goes for the pick 6. So Georgia Tech gets another drive. Pitt gets a 3 and out on that drive. And so Pitt's second possession of the second half, Turner loses 4 yards on first down. Heinzel gets sacked on second down. That drive is pretty much dead. Third drive of the second half. They end up taking 2.5 minutes off the clock. And this one killed me. This was in the fourth quarter. Pitt was up 35-14 at this point. So they're up by 3 touchdowns. They get first play of the drive. This is the third drive of the second half. It's into the fourth quarter. First play, they get a 5-yard run from Juelz Goff. Second play, they get an 8-yard run from Juelz Goff. So you've gotten 13 yards. Oh, this drive started at the Pitt 8. Okay. You get 13 yards on the first 2 plays, running plays. So what do they do on 1st and 10 from the 21? Drop back to pass. And Mason Heinzel gets sacked for a 7-yard loss. 2nd and 17. I mean, you have no choice. You have to drop back and pass now. He scrambles for 10 yards, 3rd and 7, throws to Goff, who ultimately drops it for an incomplete pass. He wasn't going to get a first down anyway. So there's another drive where I look at it and I'm like, Pitt's offense kind of stopped itself. You were running the ball well. Why drop back to pass on first down and take a 7-yard sack when you're running the ball? Then their next drive, this is the one that I complained about a long time ago. This is their 4th drive of the second half. They get the ball with about 8:25 to go in the game. They're up 35-21. Georgia Tech had just scored. This is the drive that ends with a fake punt, where 8:25 to go. You're trying to kill as much time as you can. They drop back to pass 3 times. On second down, they snap the ball with 11 seconds to go on the play clock. On third down, with the clock running, because on second down, they throw a pass to Ja'Kyrie Turner that gains 0 yards. So it's 3rd and 9 with the clock running, and they snap the ball with 18 seconds left to go on the play clock. And Heinkel scrambles, throws to Raphael Williams. Almost an amazing play, but Williams is out of bounds. And then they run the fake punt. So they're like, the offense was stopped. Why couldn't the offense move the ball after halftime? I mean, that was just dumb, right? Like, run the ball. Run the ball. This is one of your best rushing game. This is your best rushing game of the season. You're having the most success you've had all season running the ball. Just keep doing it. And then on the fifth drive of the half is the one that gets a 56-yard touchdown run for Ja'Kyrie Turner, which, I will say, like, Mason Heinkel didn't do much in the second half, but on this drive, it's 35-28. Georgia Tech had just scored. It's a 1-touchdown game. There's, less than 4 minutes left to go. It's 3rd and 4 at the Pitt 31 with the clock ticking just under 4 minutes. You are in the danger zone right here. And Heinkel reads the blitz, hits his hot read, gets it to Blue Hicks for a 13-yard gain. Huge play for Mason Heinkel there, which we probably haven't talked about enough, that play. And then Turner gets the 56-yard run on the next play. So I guess my point is, like, you ask, like, why couldn't Pitt move the ball after halftime? Just a confluence of events. I don't think they all of a sudden got bad, but I think they made some poor decisions. They had some bad luck. And, it probably wasn't as bad as it looked, I guess is what I would say. Ms. Priya Lau is a super chatter again, says the unsportsmanlike call in the second quarter was a bad call. So Rasheem Biles on the sideline, it didn't seem like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what he said, right? So if you're there, you could hear the word, maybe what he said specifically, the actual words he used were enough to merit an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. My thing is this, like, regardless of what you said, regardless of what was merited or not, one way to guarantee that penalty is not called, one way to guarantee that flag is not thrown, turn around and walk to the other sideline. And I think Rasheem Biles is really good. I think he has been maybe Pitt's best defensive player this year. He had 15 tackles in this game. Holy cow. I don't even realize that. I said before the game, I thought he was my defensive player to watch in this game. I thought he could have double-digit tackles. He ended up leading all players with 15 tackles. Kyle Lewis. Shout out to Kyle Lewis, man. Kyle Lewis had 11 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and a sack. That's his first sack since the Duquesne game. Kyle Lewis came into this game tonight with 2 sacks on the season, and they both were against Duquesne. He got one in this game. It was actually Pitt's only sack of the game on Haynes King. But Rasheem Biles, I think he's really good. You gotta be smarter. Like, don't even put yourself in that position where a penalty could be called, where a flag could be thrown. You just got to stop on 3rd and short. A stop for loss on 3rd and short. Just go over to the other sideline. Don't even give them an opportunity to call a foul, to throw a flag. But he did. All right, let's get a few more here. We've been going for a while, but there's plenty to talk about tonight. Let's see. JM 13 round, or maybe JM Brown, I guess. Maybe you want the 1 and the 3 to look like a B. Says, y'all are harping on the negative. He literally got Pitt so prepared. We went up 28-0, which allowed us to overcome his stupidity. Look, like I said, whatever you want to say about Pat Narduzzi, he had them ready to play. Like, they came out ready to roll right from the jump. And they played really, really well in the first quarter. most of the second quarter, the offense was humming. The defense was playing really well. Lots of energy. And just eventually, like, Georgia Tech's defense or Georgia Tech's offense did what it does. Like, that's a good offense, and eventually they played like it. But yeah, I think Narduzzi gets credit for having them ready to play for sure. I didn't see this. I don't know what it. Davey G NYC says, not a fan of them trying to plant the flag. Be better in victory. I don't think this is necessarily a team that is gracious in victory. I mean, wasn't there like a photo or video of them after the Florida State game doing like the chant, the tomahawk chop? Like, I think it's corny when other teams, if their defensive players make a big play, they do the shark thing. And I think it's corny if, Pitt, when something good happens, does something like that, right? So like doing the tomahawk chop at Florida State or whatever you're talking about. I don't know if they're necessarily a gracious in victory type of team. Davey also says if they can match up with Georgia Tech, they can match up with Miami, but they need Virginia Tech to help. Yeah, Virginia Tech or I think it's Cal. I think SMU plays Cal. But J.M. Brown says not hopeful that SMU or Virginia lose next week. Yeah, that's you're going to be scoreboard watching a little bit, but you're also going to be watching Pitt and Miami. I'm trying to see if a kickoff time has been announced yet. I don't think it has. I'm looking at Miami's official Twitter feed. They're not saying anything. We'll keep an eye out for that. I don't think anything. I thought it would get announced tonight, actually, after the Pitt Georgia Tech game. I thought the kickoff time for Pitt Miami would get announced, but it hasn't. Oh well. Let's see. Dr. Gags, I'm going to read it that way. Dr. Gags 2023 says, bottom line, we have been relevant. 8 wins, and we stopped a potential losing streak on the road against a top 20 team. Yeah. A team that hadn't lost at home in 2 years. Brock Madonic says, did Trevor Summers play at all today? Pat Narduzzi said he would get snaps this game. He did say that, but I didn't notice him. You know what I noticed, actually? When Francis Brew went out with an injury for a little while, Isaiah Neal caught some snaps inside. Neal, a defensive tackle who's been playing outside a defensive end with all the injuries, has he's been pretty good at defensive end, but I saw him take some snaps at defensive tackle in this game after Francis Brew got hurt. I thought Blaine Spires played pretty well at defensive end as well, and Joey Zielinski made a big player too. Let's see. Scroll through. I'm way behind on comments. I'm reading comments from people that were posted like literally more than an hour ago, but it's because of all the super chatters, you guys who came through. We appreciate that for sure. See what anybody else. Oh, it's already past midnight. How about that? Time flies when you're having fun, I guess, folks. Maybe we'll cut it off there. You know what? Pitt wins 42-28. The over hits, as I predicted. Rasheem Biles gets double-digit tackles, as I predicted. This is a good week for me. I think we can, I think we can probably put this one to bed and move on. We'll keep an eye out for the Pitt-Miami kickoff time. Hopefully, I thought that would get announced tonight, but I guess it'll get announced tomorrow. We'll keep an eye out for that. But Pitt wins. They're 8-3. And like I say, they give you plenty. Like when you run into your Pitt fan friends tomorrow, or if you're texting with them or whatever, you can be like, the hell, why did they try a fake punt? You could be really mad about Pitt football, but also you could be glad that they're 8-3 overall. They're 6-1 in the ACC, and they're going to go play a very good Miami team in a very big game at home in the regular season finale. What more could you ask for? I mean, other than a win over Louisville. What more could you ask for? All right. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. Listen, make sure you like this video and subscribe. Oh, we got one more super chatter. Look at that. Somebody wants to jump in here. Kevin says the fake punt was one of the worst coaching decisions I've seen. Pitt will need to drop serious NIL money to keep those freshmen. I'd have to sit and think for a while about the worst coaching decisions I've seen. But yeah, Mason Heichel, Kyrie Turner, they're going to do well with NIL and rev share money this offseason. No question about it. Thank you, Kevin, for being a super chatter. Thanks, everybody who tuned in tonight. Like I say, make sure you like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We always have fun with these post-game shows, and I'm sure our post-game show after the Miami game next week will be no exception. All week long, we have morning Pitt episodes. We have our live show every Wednesday night at, what time does that happen? 8:30 p.m. And we have lots of great Pitt video content for you right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So make sure you make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com and enjoy it, Pitt fans. 8-3, 6-1. Pretty good place to be heading into the season finale. So thanks for tuning in tonight. Hope you had a good weekend. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. We'll catch up with you tomorrow morning for the morning, or catch up with you Monday morning for the morning Pit right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.